So, do you get in a lot of trouble with Twitch if you start your show late?
No, not at all. In fact, I'm one of the few that are actually start things on time. So there we go. Back, everyone. No, there's no set. Yeah, Twitch could care less about time storage and things like that. So we are back.
That's good.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. I did not know what docs to open up, so I only had one open for you, Amy, and that was. I'll bring that one back up. That was. I'm assuming you said needle draw, right? So I'm assuming Gary Julian's Keelan was a doc that we use, or no?
And I'm trying to remember everything that I sent you.
Okay.
But
Keelan provincial.
I know I sent you quite a few things related to Keelan.
Yeah. So let me get to that then. Let me just
because I had a couple of points I wanted to.
All right, I'll bring that up only then here for now, so I can keep things going here. All right, good.
Find what I had.
Coming live. Look at that. We're dead on time, even with that crash. Sound good and everything? All right. Let's come live here.
Yep.
There we go. I'll put the ladies up top and Mike at the bottom. Because Mike doesn't care. Oh, it won't let me.
It doesn't work.
It's not working. There we go. There we go. How's everyone doing? Good evening. Sorry about all that. I'm J.K. Lord Gazumba. Hopefully everyone is doing well today and enjoy the night before Thanksgiving. So some things. Does anyone notice anything about me?
You have a new shirt on.
Whoa, Anna! Look at this. What is that?
That's the Greyhawk Cartographer's Guild.
No, it's the 2-drink minimum.
2-drink minimum.
Oh, okay. I didn't see the. I saw the little balls, so I thought it was
the little balls. Yes.
Guild.
Yeah. So the 2-drink minimum ones came in, Anna. So I'll be starting to get these out to everyone in the group. Yes, so we got 2-drink minimum shirts in for Gary Con. So I'll be starting to get those out. So, welcome, Amy. Amy Crittenden, everyone. Theala, what's your Thessala? What's the other name?
It's Theala Sildorian.
Theala Sildorian, yes.
Right. So that is the longest term character that I've played. I created her in 1980, and I've been playing her off and on ever since. She's my favorite character. She's a half-elven ranger from Selene.
Nice.
Cool.
I love Selene.
Very nice.
Perfect.
Yeah, I really liked some of the gaming that we did in Selene.
So as we get started here, why don't you tell us a little bit, as people are rolling back in here, a little bit about like history, like how long you've been playing, and just go back to the beginning if you so would.
Sounds like since at least 1980.
Yeah, it's as long as me. As long as me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
As long as me too.
I think this is kind of a fun story. So
Sure.
I got into gaming really by accident. And it was at a time where the Satanic Panic was kind of getting started. That was back in 1979, Christmas 1979. We had a small little community bookstore in the town that I grew up in. And we went there every weekend to buy books. And I had read just about everything in the fantasy and science fiction section that they had there. And they had a pretty decent selection. So my parents are trying to figure out what to get me for Christmas that year. And finally, the owner of the bookstore recommended this little game called Dungeons and Dragons. It was the Holmes box set. And they didn't know what it was. I had seen the stand.
Yes.
So they bought it for me. It was a total surprise. I didn't know I was getting it. I opened it up, looked through it. And I had the version of the box set where they didn't have the dice.
Prison edition.
Mhm.
So that was they were putting those boxes together at the 11th hour. The dice hadn't come in, so they had these chits, these laminated chits. You had to cut them up. I would
Yes.
put them in a little Dixie cup and shake it up, and the players or we would pull in and we would draw a number out of it. I still have the chits. I still
That's
have that
awesome.
Holmes box set. And I did eventually get the dice later. And my brother and I, we roll up characters. I think when we started playing, I think we went through maybe 10 characters a piece
Sounds
in
right.
that in the first session, because they would just get killed the minute we went anywhere. We were going into the caves of chaos.
So you had to keep on the Borderlands, not In Search of the Unknown.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I did get In Search of the Unknown later. But my box set, for whatever reason, came with Keep on the Borderlands land. So that was the first thing that I ran. We had a ball with it. We both fell in love with it, and I've been doing this ever since.
Same story as Lando. Same story as me. Started with
Mhm.
Holmes Basic. The
Yeah.
box is just the box cover is so awesome.
We might have started to play almost the
John,
same
BBC.
week, because that was exactly the same time I started too.
Wow.
7980, the winter 7980. Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
small world, great
Yep.
minds think alike, as my mom used to
Mhm.
say. So
Yep.
It's such a great memory because it's the beginning of, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You
Exactly.
just don't know.
Yep.
And
we had no idea.
no
No
idea.
idea what we were
And there's
doing.
only 4 alignments: law, chaos, good, evil, right? That's it. There's
Right.
only 4 alignments. There's no neutrals or anything like that. And halflings are their own class. So, and they're fighters. They're not thieves.
Right.
There are no gnomes. It's halfling, dwarf, their own class. Elf is a fighter mage. And then you have your basic classes, and that's it.
That
No
was my first
rangers,
successful character, was an elven fighter mage.
Yep. It was really cool. BX before it. No, Pat 66. Holmes Basic is not BX.
No,
BX is
BX came
Mulvey.
later.
Yeah, BX is Mulvey, and then Beckme is the last one, the red box one, which is who did that one? Mentor. That's Mentor Basic. So it goes Holmes, Mulvey, Mentor. So when John at Blue Box talks about his, that's X. That's the Blue Box. That's the expert out of Mulvey. So note that, which is a good question. But yeah, Holmes Basic is the best one of all. And I wish I had brought mine up to note that you were that far back. But let me see.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I guess I just didn't. I didn't really anticipate that question.
I'll show everyone the box cover here.
Yeah,
so everyone can see which one we're talking about.
My brother got very frustrated in those first
Mentor's
few
Beckme.
sessions, and so what he ended up doing was, he said he didn't want to roll up a new character anymore. So he took the same base character, which was a dwarf fighter, because he just loved his dwarf fighter, and he would give that character a new name, and it would be like Borin the First, Borin the Second, Borin the Third, and it was Borin, son of Borin, son of Borin, until he finally got one that made it to second level. And then from there, the character was able to continue. And we actually had a campaign that could go somewhere. And then in the summer of 1980, I did most of the DMing. We would get together with a friend. It was just 3 of us. And we would go over to his house because his parents both worked, and we would just game all day, Monday through Friday. We did our first campaign in 3 months. First through to about 14th, 15th level. I think I kind of bent the rules on first edition for dwarves, because they were both playing dwarves as far as level progression. Because I just didn't care. I didn't think the rule made any sense, so I just that. And we had a lot of fun with that. And when we weren't playing D&D, we were playing video games on our friend Rob's Commodore 64.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he had a Commodore 64 with a tape drive, and he had Castle Wolfenstein, and that thing took forever to load.
It took like half an hour just to load the game.
Yeah,
and you have to go back and forth.
We'd start loading the game, and then we go play a little D&D. We do a little combat session, and we go back and check the game, and it's still loading. So we go back and play a little more D&D. And then about an hour later, we could actually play Castle Wolfenstein. It was fun.
Poor Radiance is later on, though, Hager. The gold boxes are not out yet. So, this is early on. You had, you had early wizardry on the Apple. And you had some of the other games, like, my favorite of all time is Wasteland. Man, on the Commodore 64, what a fantastic game. And then Bard's Tale was great too on the Commodore 64. But you had the Apple II and the Commodore 64 really crunching out some stuff, and they did. But the Gold Box games were later, a little bit later. So Archon was great. A great chess game, chess combat, right? Yeah, some wonderful stuff. We might have to reminisce and do another one of those episodes. I know we kind of did one way back, but for computer games, we should probably go back and do that at some point if it's a filler episode.
Another fun story about those days. Gaming is actually what got my brother into his career field.
Oh yeah,
because nice. So my brother is a software engineer. He's a computer programmer. And he's worked for all the big names in the industry, Netscape, and right now he works for Red Hat. He's an expert on computer security and cloud computing and a lot of other different kinds of things. He's done very well for himself, but he got into software programming because of an article in Dragon magazine. So I started buying Dragon magazine off the newsstand in our local bookstore, and then I later got a subscription. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what issue it is, but it was one of the early issues, probably somewhere around in the late 30s, early 40s.
And if you go back and look at these old numbers, they had a section where they reviewed computer games. They had programming advice. They even reviewed a flight sim in one of the Dragon magazines back in the day, which surprised me.
So Squad Leader.
Exactly. They covered video games and computers quite heavily for some years in the early days. Yep.
Well, they had some kind of it was a tutorial. It was basic. The computer language was basic. And they had this thing where you could program. I don't know if it was a die roller or what it was. I can't remember. It's been so long. But the code was published in the article, and we both played around with it, and I found it to be too tedious, but he loved it. It was like a puzzle to him. And he loved puzzles. This is a guy who got a Rubik's Cube and solved it very quickly. My brother was and is just a whiz at math. And from there, he just, his interest in computers just exploded. And that led him into his career field.
Yep.
How about that?
Yep.
Commodore 64 was great. I created an alignment tester. It was a series of questions. I wish I had this stuff still. Where you could where it would spit out what your alignment was after you answered a series of questions, like what you would do in a D&D situation, and also a character generator. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Yeah, that's really neat.
Those are so long gone. That's from my mother's house. But yeah, so you were Holmes Basic just like myself, just like a lot of people out in the audience, pre Greyhawk. Because, a lot of us don't have the white book Greyhawks at this point. Not until the folio comes out in 1980, right?
Right.
Here it is. Not until this baby comes out, 1980.
Oh, let's see here.
That thin. Yep.
Got mine right here.
Look, we both get different editions. I think yours is a little older with that strip on it.
It might be. It came out in 1980. I'm not sure which printing it is. It's interesting because my copy of the Darlene map that came in this, when you look at all, it's a lighter printing of the map. And so apparently there's some kind of a feature there that you can't really see on my copy of the map. And I was just talking to a friend of mine about that the other day, and I can't remember what exactly it is, but there's some city or something there on other versions of the map where the printing was a little darker.
Interesting. Yeah, there are some slight variations in the color and the texture, as they did change the paper a couple times. So, all right. So, are you hooked like I was instantly on Greyhawk, or did you meander around a bit early on?
So kind of funny thing about that. I really did like when the folio was published, and I picked it up brand new off the bookshelf, and I fell in love with the map. I thought it was the most beautiful thing, and I love maps. So I did play some things in Greyhawk at first, because you get these references in the modules about where things were, but the way that they were spread out all over the place was a problem for me, because I wanted interconnected stories with the adventures. So what I eventually ended up doing was creating my own homebrew universe campaign setting and importing a lot of Greyhawk into that. So my campaign started in Greyhawk. I imported it into my own homebrew universe, which it's been a while since I've run anything that. Probably it's been about 10 years since the last time I read a campaign in that. And then when I started playing with a different group of friends in the mid 90s, when I moved to Delaware, that's when I really got back into Greyhawk really hard and heavy. And because by then there had been so many other things that had been published, I was starting to get access to some of those things and really liked what I saw. And I thought, this takes a lot of the work out of getting my campaign setting going, because there's so much that I can draw from. I don't have to do all the work to create everything myself. And yet at the same time, I've got plenty of room to make whatever I want to and just slide it in. So that's what I ended up doing.
So with that little 10-second sidebar, you'd think that we don't have a lot of new Greyhawk people coming, but I want to show you someone's next generation dedication to the game. Someone took some stuff that they got and they this is
What?
This is the world of Greyhawk. This is Jim Ward's Greyhawk Adventures. This is the Player's Handbook, and this is Hunter Takena. All that person had them all in PDF, and look at that.
Wow.
Yes, a new convert. So that's an extremely recent pick. I love to see that. So yeah. So keep that dedication coming, community. Keep the fire burning, because Amy, I don't know. It sounds like, all right. So you were not thrilled with how wide open Greyhawk was to start, right?
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like.
Because when you look at the little gazetteer that came in that original folio folder, there's really not. I mean, you've got some background information. It talks about the twin cataclysms and all of those other things. But there's not a lot of information about the different countries. It doesn't even list who the rulers of those countries are.
It just
Not
tells you the
names.
class, not the name or anything. Thanks,
So
Bruce.
you don't get that information until the World of Greyhawk box set comes out a few years
83.
later.
Yep, you're absolutely correct.
And by that point in my life, I had gone away to college and I didn't have any money. So there were a lot of Greyhawk things that I wanted to buy and didn't have the money to buy. So for a long time, I didn't have that kind of access. And that was why I had created my own homebrew universe, because I just thought it was easier for me, because I wanted to be able to link the stories together in a more organized way. Because if you think about it, you've got the G series that takes place in Jeff and Sterich. And then you've got Len Lakaffa's classic L series, which is on the other far side of the map in the Lendor Isles. And that just is too much space.
Oh, I agree.
For me. So I wanted it all. My homebrew universe, while it is a big universe, all of the gameplay took place in a very small, tight, confined area so that I could link the stories together.
And when you think about this, and you have just so many adventures that are printed in 78, 79, and 80, there's not that many. What, maybe 15 at most? Right?
At most, yeah. A lot of them were convention games.
Yeah,
that
A
they just
series,
put
D
print.
series, G series, C series. That's it.
Right.
No Showcanth isn't out yet. It's not. It doesn't get released till the mid '80s. But like, this is a huge area for all that, so I can understand it completely. And if you're gonna run Bone Hill, it's like it's all the way out here,
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that adventure. I
loved it
absolutely
too.
love that adventure. I put Restenford into my campaign universe, but I
Right.
put it on the mainland. It's a coastal city, but it's on the mainland.
I did the same thing, Amy. So don't feel bad.
Oh, I don't. Len gave me this wonderful gift, and I took it, and I used
Yes. Do you have it right there? Is it
it. What
the
the
bag?
module?
Your bag. Oh, your actual gift.
It's in the other room.
That's no problem. That was
yeah.
That was one of the treats that we had before he departed. He was giving away a lot of stuff, and you won that in the contest, which was awesome.
Yeah, that was such a huge thrill for me to win that contest and win that little item. And it was funny too, because I was so excited when it came in the mail, and I showed it to my nephew, and he's in his early 20s, and we didn't think he was going to get into gaming at all, because he was more into video games, like, kids his age were. But then eventually he did get into D&D. And so I asked him if he knew who Len Lakofka was. And he's like, oh yeah, I know who he is. And I was surprised that he knew, but I showed it to him and told him how I got it. And so he was suitably impressed. So that made me happy.
So that's great to hear that, because a lot of people don't. I mean, a lot of the new game, I'm not bashing anyone. I'm not bashing 5 years. People just don't know. A lot of people don't even know who Gary Gygax is. So, yeah, Patrick, this is the 2 drink minimum shirt for Gary Con. I just got a whole box of them in the mail. They're going out to all the players. Yes. So, yeah. So I figured I'd show this off. Get a little coveting here. Yep. So there you go. So, Wayne, thanks. Oh, wow. All right. With that, we're done. Strongholds, we're doing 2 giveaways tonight. Get your choice of Classic D&D reprints. Please sign up. So, okay. Home brewing till about what year? 90s?
Oh, I would say I homebrewed it till probably about 95.
So still at the end of still 2E era.
Yeah. Third edition, I think, came out a couple of years
2000.
after that.
Yeah, it was 2000.
Yep.
And so when I ran a game, I ran it in my own homebrew universe. If I was the player, I was playing in my friend Greg's Greyhawk campaign, and he and I still game together. And so we round robin GM now. So his Greyhawk and my Greyhawk have become our Greyhawk.
Oh, nice.
Although to be fair, it's still mostly his Greyhawk, because our campaign has been so heavily influenced by the things that he's been running for a very long time before I joined the game. So
yeah, that's so cool.
So highlights. Think of an event that happened. I always go back to, something that's hysterical in those early, like, me, 80, 81, 82, 83, I'm still in high school at the time. You got to have like a funny story of something that just as like Monty Hall or not, it could be Greyhawk or not based, something happened with your players back then.
So, I was playing in a fantasy setting. I was the player in this game, and it was a homebrew setting. And during this adventure, I'm playing a shadow mage.
Oh.
During this adventure, we're trying to get past a house where some giants were living, and we're trying to sneak by them so that we're not detected. And so my character, who should be able to sneak quite easily because she's a shadow mage, is making her way past this giant's house, and I fumbled my stealth check. So the GM ruled that I had stepped on the tail of a cat and woke up the giants so that we had a fight on our hands. And after that, anytime somebody fumbled a stealth check, the whole group would go and so it became a big joke about stepping on a cat.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna remember that one. That's a good one.
And it's stuck.
Yep. Oh, it's so cool.
That's the great thing.
Stuck, yeah. I have had some things. So Theala has had some things happen to her that no matter what she does, she just can't get rid of it. So our characters all have abilities that we're able to do, because we don't play D&D, we play hero system. So there's skills that you can have, and one of the skills that Theala has is cooking. She can cook. And for years, she would always cook the meals when we were out on the road on our adventures. And later on, she gets married, and she marries Baron Anladon Helly, who's the Baron of the Axewood. And she invites some friends over, and she's cooking a big meal, and she fumbles her cooking check. And ever since then, nobody will let her cook. Oh no, you don't want to eat. And she's just
Fun
like, man, it was one bad meal. It was one bad meal.
That's
You
awesome.
dropped all the salt in there or something like
Oh,
that.
well, she burned the fish.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
what the GM rule happened when she fumbled her check.
Yeah.
She burned the
Oh, that's
fish.
great. What level is she now?
So in D&D terms, she
Roughly.
was 9th level before I converted her over into Hero System.
Yeah.
If I converted her back, she would probably be probably 11th or 12th
Okay.
level.
Yeah.
Respectable
Yeah.
retirement up there in the old
How
school.
long you been doing
Yeah.
Hero System?
Exactly. I was just going to ask the same. When did you convert or change over, and what was the motive, so to speak, or
Okay.
what made you
So,
take the shift?
so that's a great question. So when I finished high school, I went to nursing school at our local community college, and I was able to keep running for my friends in the area where I grew up. But then I transferred to a 4-year college in Salisbury, Maryland, and there was no gaming community there at all that I could find.
Middle of
And
nowhere.
this is pre-internet.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find anybody to game with. So if I wanted to game, I had to drive 2 hours home to run on the weekends. And that kind of got old after a while. But my brother went to the same college as I did for a while. And so we started a computer bulletin board service. Now, if we got any younger folks on here, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but pre-internet,
Dial-up
your
and
computer had a
yeah.
modem, you had to dial in for your service.
Mhm.
And so we had an Apple IIe, we bought a 300 baud modem.
Yes. Shh. 300
Yeah, so we had
baud.
that set up.
Oh
We
my
had that
gosh.
set up in my college dorm room on a telephone line. I bought a landline. And I made a very critical mistake when I did that, because my parents had told us, you cannot buy a modem for this computer, because they were terrified that my brother was going to start hacking into the Pentagon, because that was when hacking was the big thing. All these teenagers hacking into government computers.
Everyone saw War Games.
Right, exactly. And what they didn't know was my brother was already do that. He was past that stage because he'd already done all that. But we had been forbidden to do this, and we did it anyway. Unfortunately, because I was cheap, I only bought one phone line. So my mom figured it out, because every time she tried to call me, the line was busy.
Yep.
Because our BBS was very popular. So I ended up getting the second landline. That was the compromise. They almost took the computer back from us. And I actually used it to write my papers on.
To think that stuff that slow and that like antiquated, you could actually hack into government agencies back then, says a lot about there was no cybersecurity at all.
Exactly.
Oh
Nobody knew
gosh.
what security was back then.
Yeah.
Hardly anyone had computers, so yeah.
And most of the people who had computers with modems back then, they had 1200 baud or 2400 baud modems, and I had a stinky little 300. And yet our BBS was very active and very popular, and we kept it up for years. Well, so to get to the point, there was a network of these things in the local area, and from there I was able to get hooked up with a guy through a computer club who was a gamer. And he invited me to join their regular game, but they didn't play D&D. They played Hero System. And that was probably around 91 or 92.
Wow, I didn't realize it was out that long ago.
Yeah, so if you've ever heard of the superhero game Champions, first edition of that came out in the early 80s.
Yeah,
played that Champions.
Curtis does that too. Curtis played at a GaryCon.
Yes. So Champions is, it was very easy to convert to any genre. And the company that produces it, Hero Games, later produced other editions of the game. It's the same game that are suitable. So they call it Fantasy Hero and Space Hero.
It's a bit like GURPS that had different versions. You can do different things with the rules.
Exactly. GURPS is very similar in many ways. So I had to learn a new system if I wanted to game. That's what it boiled down to.
Yeah.
And what I found is that I really loved this game system. And a couple of years after that, on another computer bulletin board system, I was dialing into a BBS called Red October that was based in Texas. And it was a place where all the Hero System game fans went. And I met a guy there named Steve Long, who was starting to write professionally for Hero Games. And he and I became friends. And from there, he introduced me to another guy named Greg Smith, who lived locally, and I was able to. He lived maybe 45 minutes up the road from me, so that was how we met. And he and I have been gaming together off and on ever since. And for the for the past 20 years or so, we've lived in sometimes I've had to make some pretty long commutes in order for us to continue to gaming, but currently we both live in the same town. We both live in Columbus, Ohio. And Greg was a graphic artist and a draftsman, and so he did a lot of covers and interior art for some of the gaming companies back in the 90s.
Cool.
So I'm going to ask some. We're into the computer era here. Any mushes? Did you ever do any of those? Mushes.
I did, yes. I did do those, and muds
and stuff. Yeah,
I'll tell you your dungeons. Yes, I did, and I very quickly stopped doing them because they were sucking up way too much of my time. I had decided to quit doing them. I can't remember what the name of the one that I played was. I do remember that Neverwinter Nights came out. That started as that kind of a game.
It did, and that because it was based off a gold box, and I got to put them up because I got to tell the story there, Amy. This bill. That bill hacked into the code because it was all hexadecimal and gave us plus 256 rings of protection because it was so easy to hack into that. Yeah, we could make a max out character in experience because like you give goblins 9,000 experience points or something every time you kill one. You know, those were the days. But it was fun back then because it was harmless. It was not like it is now. People were just out there to have fun and all. But cool.
People just went out to have. I mean, you have jerks in any kind of a setting, and there would be people who do PvP, and they would come in and they would attack your character or whatnot, and sometimes they get banned depending on the rules of the MUD about whether or not you're actually allowed to do that. But by and large, it was a lot of fun, and the reason why I got out of it was because it was such a time suck.
Yeah.
I don't even play video games that much anymore because I didn't know it at the time. I found this out a few years ago. I have raging ADHD. So I will sit down and I would sit down and start playing Diablo because I love that game.
Diablo
and I would look at the clock and 8 hours have gone by.
Oh yeah.
We played Diablo heavily at work when it came out the first time. We had LAN parties with our laptops and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
We spent some damn.
That was the best. That was the best D&D style game for LAN.
Oh yeah, the Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 and
yeah.
What was it, about 2000, 2002, 2003?
Around that time. It was post
around that time.
It was post Baldur's Gate 2. Yeah.
Yeah, it was while we were playing 3rd edition and we played Baldur's Gate or Diablo and stuff. So we played Diablo at work and D&D on weekends.
Yeah.
Right. But so the fun thing about Diablo was we actually took some elements of Diablo and we put them into our game.
Okay.
All right,
Amy.
Amy.
Did you, Jay? Yeah.
Yes.
Come on, Amy. Word's third leg.
Yeah. So Amy, what did you
from
implement?
Diablo.
Yeah.
Word's third leg. Yeah, and socketed items. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, socketed item. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So you'd have like a shield and you'd have a socket in it that you could put like a rune or a gemstone or something like that and make it more powerful and give it unique abilities. And you could craft it and change those abilities. But once you crafted it, you could never turn it back. So if you had something really cool, you had to be really careful about that because you could lose a really cool item and get something that sucked. So you had to be careful.
Absolutely. It was such once again, the experimentation phase of that pulls stuff. And how I know everyone can raise their hand. How many of you have stolen stuff from video games into your Greyhawk campaign? I'm raising both hands. Okay.
Yeah, I raised a little finger because I haven't taken much, but a little bit here and there.
From Diablo and from World of Warcraft.
For me, I took from Neverwinter Nights. That's
good too.
Yeah, the first when you played Drow and that was also early 2000s.
Right.
That game I played that heavily and I took some stuff there during my Drow campaign.
There's it was a glory that late 90s, mid to late 90s, early 2000s, pre Neverwinter Nights. the third edition Neverwinter Nights, which came out, because that was another generation of games. All the Gold Box, Amy, Diablo, the Wastelands, all that, and that was the golden era, man, of playing, just going out and playing. I mean, how many hours did you spend on Gold Box games? Pull of Radiance, Amy, how long, and all those. The
Yeah,
Dragonlance,
and
Gold
like I said,
Box.
I actually didn't play a lot of those games
Okay.
because they were such a time suck.
Yeah.
And I was working full time, or I was in school, or both, and so I had to make decisions about where I was going to spend my leisure time, because if I didn't, I would never get anything done. I wouldn't even go to work because I'd be too busy playing a video game.
I tried from time to time, but I wasn't that much into gaming then. You had to get a little bit better graphics and stuff for me to really get hooked. So it was Diablo, Neverwinter and stuff. That's when I got into fantasy gaming on computers a lot.
Darklands, that was another one by Microprose. That was an awesome game. It just could never run on the system. Yeah, good. I mean, just so your Greyhawk is getting formed at this point by all the other data coming in. All the other things. So in the 90s, after the first generation stuff comes out, what's your go-to for Greyhawk? Are you in the box? Are you in the Free City Greyhawk box set, Jim Ward's Greyhawk Adventures, or you're still like rolling on your own at this point?
So I was still pretty much rolling on my own at that point, as far as what I was running. Mm-hmm. Now, if I was playing in somebody else's game, like my friend Greg, he had the Marklands when that came out, and so he drew very heavily from that, and our campaign was in that area of the Flannays for a very long time. With the stuff that I was running, a lot of times what I would do, now I was not much of a poster. In fact, I'm not sure I ever posted. I was a lurker, but on the AOL Grey Talk, I was in that for a while. And when I would go on AOL, you would be able to go, they would have these file areas that you could get into and just download all kinds of stuff. There were graphic ones that I got for this computer generated art that was just beautiful. And I still have a lot of those files. And then I would go and I would just find an article that I liked and go, ooh, that's really cool. And I would pull it out and I would use that to either give some flavor and color to a character I was playing at the time, or I would use it to base something that I was going to run at the time. So I picked up quite a bit of stuff from that. And then, of course, later Cannon Fire, when Cannon Fire came online, it wasn't too long after that got started that I became a member there. And again, I don't post much on the forums on Cannon Fire, but it's still one of my go-tos to look for articles. And some of the original stuff that came in the early 2000s from Sam Weiss and GVD and some of those other guys, it's just pure gaming gold. Still is great stuff. And so I still draw very heavily from that stuff. And that provided a foundation for a lot of the things that I would run and that the other people in our group, when we round robin, would run in our Greyhawk game. And that the AOL files was where I got the article on Loan a Car.
Oh, okay. Let's start there then for your stuff here, because we had you on this, and it's been about 2 years ago.
It's been a while, yeah. And I haven't had a chance to update that map, but I made that map.
It's such an awesome. I had never heard of it until that show. I knew nothing about this place. That shows you how ignorant I was.
So the thing about that is that. So Nathan Ellis, and he was an editor for the Earth Journal for a while, and he wrote some really great stuff back during that time frame. He wrote that article, and I read it, and it was for a contest, I think that he did. It's kind of a similar to a Cannon Fire Post Fest, I think. And I read it, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. And I downloaded it, and I printed it out, and I put it in page protectors, and it went in my Greyhawk notebook. And then I did nothing with it for years.
Yeah.
And then finally, I was looking for a new angle for what I wanted to GM and what I wanted to run. And I there's so much really good gaming material that gets published nowadays. That's, very slickly done with great graphics and maps and editing and da 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 da. And yet I was looking at some of this and I'm thinking, there's more stuff out there that I could buy that I would ever be able to run in a lifetime. And I've got piles and piles and piles of stuff that I've been collecting for years.
True.
I decided to go and take a look through that pile and start working through that pile. And Loan a Car was one of the first things that I started looking at when I started making those plans. So I started working on developing that probably 3-4 years ago. And the goal was to run that in my own Greyhawk campaign setting that I round robin with my friend Greg, because he does a lot of the GMing for our group, and he's just so excited whenever he gets to play. He's actually so excited he's actually can be very hard to control as a player because he wants to get in there and he wants to play. He's got a lot of energy. He's very creative, but he's challenging to run for. I'll say that. So I started working on the stuff with Loan a Car, and so one of the reason why you probably had not heard of it, Jay, I wanted to get back and address that really quick. The full article that Nathan wrote wasn't available on Cannon Fire for years.
Okay.
There was a synopsis on Loan a Car.
And the AOL boards?
Yeah, so the full article was on the AOL boards.
That's why. Okay.
But on Cannon Fire, the article on Loan a Car is just a synopsis about the city. It actually tells you very little. There's a lot of detail that's not present in that article.
Okay.
So, if you had seen it on Cannon Fire, you weren't getting the full picture from it. Now, I believe it is available on Cannon Fire now because I sent a copy of it to Gary or somebody, and I think it is on Cannon Fire now.
Awesome.
So when I started working on the campaign map, by then I'd come across a few other products, Anna's Maps, first of all. And I really took a deep look at Nathan's description of the area surrounding the city itself, because I didn't want to start the campaign in the city. I wanted to start the campaign, or the adventure, I should say, outside of the city, because one of the things I really wanted to do was give the player a detailed description of what it was like to look at the Sea of Dust. And I drew that description from there. There's another article, and I forget, I think Randy Richards might have written this, but there's like a compendium of all of the references and information about the Soul and the Soul Imperium. And then, of course, there's Gary Gygax's description in Sea of Death. So I went and I looked at that and I pulled that information out because I wanted to weave that in to his character's first glimpse of the Sea of Dust, because we'd never gone to that part of the map. And then I also looked at Randy Richards' I forget the name of the adventure, Glory of something. It's a time traveling adventure. So you actually go back to the capital of the Soul Imperium right before the Reign of Colorless Fire falls down. And that fan-based adventure has a map of the Soul Imperium. So I took some elements of that. What I wanted to do was draw a little piece of everything and put it into my map to kind of give a completist picture of everything of what there is. The only problem with that, though, and Nathan did contact me and point this out, is that when I kind of wove those elements from Randy Richards' map and tried to make it adjust to fit the way that Anna's maps were at the time, because she actually updated that part of the Soul.
I took your article and updated my map to match it.
Right.
So, yeah.
But the way her map was at the time, I tried to kind of mesh them together, and it kind of took away from the way Nathan had described what the topography looked like.
Oh, okay.
So it depends on what your preference is as to whether or not that map works for people. If you're a purist and you wanted to go strictly with the way that Nathan originally described it, the map would need to be redone. and of course it's on my to-do list is to because I made that map, I think, with Incarnate, and I'm don't have anywhere near the skill as other people have, so it's very crude, but but if you like the idea of taking other elements and weaving something in to make something a little different, then it's probably perfectly fine.
But this is the only map that exists.
That's the only map that exists. Nobody else has ever made a map of that area.
So this is the standard because I just love Soul City that wasn't destroyed, right? So,
right.
It's an awesome story.
The story is great.
The defenses on this, it looks like this is how high are these cliff faces running along here? I mean, 300 feet high.
Probably.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to climb.
Yeah, so it's almost impregnable. Yeah.
Right. And so one of the things that, and I do think that Nathan's original article made a reference of this, is that there is a river that runs through there. And the river goes over the cliff, and then the water disappears. So then the question is, well, where does the water go? Does it go into a big underwater reservoir in the Underdark, or does the water evaporate and disappear? Who knows? But that would be something that if you wanted to center a campaign there, that might be a mystery that someone might want to develop an answer to later on. When I've run a couple of adventures in Lonacar. I ran one in the city and for a gaming convention, and it was kind of a play test, so I'm going to have to rewrite what I did there. And then I ran an adventure in the countryside for my player here in Columbus. And so that worked out pretty interesting. He never went into the city himself. He could have, but he chose not to. So he went and did some other things and met the people who lived there and learned something about them, learned something about the politics. And what ended up happening is that as a consequence of some of the choices that he made as a player, because it was very sandbox, I didn't really make him do anything or go anywhere. He had a direction that he needed to go, an objective to accomplish. And then he ended up leaving the area by other means and returning to Keoland. But one of the consequences of that game, because he did not go to the city, he was not able to stop a character in Nathan's original description from staging a coup on the king of Lonacar. So he describes some characters in that article: the current king, his son, his daughter, his brother. These are the ruling class of the city, who they are, what they're about, their relationship with Ouijas, which is very important because she has a very strong connection to the city. She's the reason why the city survived. And then his concubine, who has something of a mysterious past and her own objectives. And well, she stages a coup and she kills the king. His daughter, the princess, escapes the city and makes her way to Keoland, and so she is now a major NPC in our campaign.
Okay.
And I am in the process of running a resolution to her story to explain, what happens to her. Is she going to go back to Lonacar and try and liberate her city, or is she going to make her new life for herself in Keoland? And that's the question that's waiting to be answered in our game.
So you really like the political drama?
Yes. So we really like the political drama. So I don't know. I haven't looked at the chat to see if Gary is in the chat.
I didn't see him.
But and I'm not picking on him when I say this, but he made a comment to me on the Cannon Fire Discord probably maybe a few months ago. And he said, and I found this kind of odd considering that he wrote the Wheels Within Wheels article. He's written a lot of official canon product on Keoland. And yet he made the comment that he doesn't know why anybody would want to put their campaign in Keoland or Neil Draw because there's no adventure there.
Oh, Gary.
So I'm not picking on Gary when I say this, because when you look at the breadth of material that the Living Keoland Triad put out,
Yeah.
there's only 3 adventures that actually take place in Neil Draw. 3. And the third one, which is late in the Living Greyhawk campaign, only takes place in the palace. It starts elsewhere in the Keoland, and then the climax is in Sandmoor Palace. So you don't even go into the city. The other 2 adventures have very different descriptions of the city itself. So Gary's got a point, because nobody wants to write anything in Neil Draw. There's very little written about Neil Draw, which on the one hand makes it wide open to somebody who wants to take it over and make it a viable gaming spot, but also leaves you with a dearth of resources if you want to have something that you can plug and play. Even the Keoland Triad didn't seem to think that the capital of Keoland was worth.
It's old and boring, apparently. Yeah.
Well, they didn't
they
blow
thought
it
it was
up.
boring.
A lot of it has to do with in Living Greyhawk area. Leave big metropolises alone, right? They were kind of instructed on that too. So now this map was this who did this Neil Draw map you have?
Okay, so a guy named Christopher Letzinger did that map.
It's nice.
It is now. It's probably the only map of Neil Draw that I've ever been able to find, and I think it's a.
I've seen one other map. I forgot who did it, but there's one other circulating around.
There might be. And I know that I did a very crude Neil Draw map. It's not finished. I may have put it on out there somewhere for people to look at, but it's nowhere near done. And in fact, I'm in the process of completely revising it based on some conversations that I've had here at home for our local campaign, where we've made a lot of changes. But the reason I put that map up there was because there were a lot of things I loved about that map. So we found that map online when we were going to move. We actually had the campaign in the Axewood at the time. But we went to Neil Draw periodically because my character Theala, she had married the Baron of the Axewood. So they had to go and meet with King Scotty. And so we had some adventures in Neil Draw during that time frame. So we wanted a map to work off. I liked that map, and I liked it for a number of reasons. And one of the reasons was that it gives you a pretty good idea of the layout of the city. Now, the downside of that is that it doesn't match really anything that Gary Julian writes about when he describes the city in his Keoland article.
Really?
So we wanted our Neil Draw to look more like that, but we kept going back to that map because we just thought it was such a nice map. So the map that I am working on now, I have taken some features from that map. Christopher Letzinger runs his game in Keoland, but he doesn't really use the Greyhawk deities for the most part. He uses the Greek gods. So there's a lot of references to Greek deities in the temples and whatnot. Some of the features in this map that I'm keeping is that so that river, he calls that the Tavish River. So obviously you cannot see the Shaldamar anywhere on that map. So my map is going to have the Shaldamar on the eastern side of the map. Obviously, I'm keeping the island. I'm putting Sandmoor on the west side of the map on the Tavish. And I'm keeping some of the other features, like there's a like a parade ground or like a coliseum in the southwestern section of the map. We're keeping that. There's some other features there that we liked, and so we're keeping those features in the map that we're creating. But it will not look very much like this map in the way that it looks now. So it's just one of those examples of where you find something, you like it. And then if you discover that it doesn't work for you, steal what you like, create what you need for the rest. And part of the reason it's taken me so long to make my own map is that we create things as we go very often.
Sure, same thing. I mean,
Everybody does that, I think.
I understand that 100%. Yeah, I mean that is not a problem. Everyone tends to. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day, right?
Exactly.
Taking I don't know. Maps take a long time, and yeah.
Kudos to you. I've never tried to revise a city map. I mean,
I've only done a few, and they take time, but I'm starting to figure out how to do them faster. But an interesting example, I posted my heraldry, my 50 heraldry for Shieldlands, and people say, "Oh, you put in a lot of work in this, and amazing, and so on." That was like a 4 days work, meaning that's a percentage of the other big projects I'm doing. So that's a little diversion or distraction that I have to do occasionally. So that requires very little work compared to it. So cartography it's the dumbest thing you can ever get into. So don't do it. Right? it's terrible. It's a time sink beyond. You sink years and decades into it. Yeah.
4 days for you, Anna, is an eternity for Amy, myself, Mike, because
Yeah,
I don't do any projects that take longer than 4 days.
Yeah, exactly.
That's 30 hours, 32 hours.
Yeah, if I have a project that take less than a year, I think it's a short one. Yeah.
So I think what's going to happen with both my Lonacar map, as far as the countryside map, I added some features, but there's a lot of empty space in there. When I do my city map, both of Lonacar and of Neil Draw, there's going to be a lot of empty spaces, and there's a reason for that. So I'm going to highlight some important areas that are in the city, like the Santmore Palace, and like where the market would be, and where the rich people live, and where the poor people live, and where the docks on the river are, and so forth.
Nice.
There will be some areas, there'll be some level of detail there that will include some key features that are common to our game. The rest of it is going to be open, and that's because we're going to draw in the roads and the buildings as we go.
Makes total sense.
It's easier.
No, it is.
And it's faster. The only thing that's taking me so long is that one of the problems that I have with map making is understanding that, and I don't know why this is, but I have problems with the concept of distance and scale. So trying to figure out how far it is from point A to point B, and making it reasonable is what I struggle with. And so I do a lot of stop and starts with the map making. That's why it's taken me 3-4 years to work on these projects.
Plus, it's so you get a block and you're like, what do I do here? And then you're like, oh, I understand that 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but if I can get back to the point that I was making, because I was teasing, kind of making a little teasing of Gary here. There's no adventure in Neil Draw. When you're working in a large city, and when you're looking at Keelan, yes, it is a politically stable country. It's probably the most politically stable country in the Flanace. The Greyhawk Wars really didn't touch it that much. Now the reason I said, the reason I showed you that map is because I like this map because it shows all of the different political entities in Keelan itself, but it also shows you what living Keelan adventures are mentioned for those areas. Now, those adventures may not say very much about that locale at all. If you look at the numbers that are listed for Neil Draw, there's a whole bunch of them, but there's only 3 that actually involve the city itself. The best one is Keo 1-01, which is the first Living Greyhawk adventure. And it actually describes the city.
Okay.
And it actually has a really cool story about a feature in the city called Dragon Roost Rock. And I know you've had some of the Keelan Triad guys on your show, Jay, and I can't remember if you had Michael Donovan or not.
I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't think so. He wrote that adventure, and I just love the story of Dragon Roost Rock. and so it is a major feature in my Neil draw. Sometimes people have trouble finding some of these adventures, because it's an IP issue, and it's a question as to whether or not
Yep.
it's legal to share this stuff. And so that's the kind of thing that's usually discouraged for that reason. But if you can get a copy of it, I think it's a worthwhile read if you're thinking about doing anything in Neil Draw, just to get the background flavor of the setting. But there's places that he describes in there, like there's a place called Brogan's, which is they have a fighting pit there.
Oh, nice.
And so that's kind of the rough and tumble place that's in our Neil Draw. We included that in our Neil Draw. We've created some other places in our
Nice.
Neil Draw. I wrote an adventure that I have run at virtual Greyhawk Con a couple of times. In fact, I ran it at the first virtual Greyhawk Con called The Fountain.
I remember that.
Yeah, I didn't run it last time,
right?
Because I'm revising it. There were some things about it that I needed to fix, just to make it a little bit more of a smooth adventure. But if you're looking for your kind of dungeon crawl type of adventure, well, there you've got one. Because what you don't know, it starts out as an investigation to this noise that's coming from that little island in the Chaldemar River, and I call it Conservancy Island. And so the mayor, Huggins Stillop, asks you, I can't get a good night's sleep. I want you to find out where that noise is coming from. And in the course of finding out where that noise is coming from, they find something underground underneath that fountain. And they find a hidden danger to the city that they have to deal with. They have to solve the problem. That's your pretty classic kind of D&D style adventure. So if that's the kind of thing that you like, there's nothing stopping you from running that kind of adventure in Neil Draw. In fact, it's the perfect place to run it because they're not expecting it. Who expects trouble in Neil Draw? So evil goes, ha ha ha, they're a soft touch, an easy mark, right for the picking, until the adventurers come along to save the day.
So this is a cool map. Who made this?
I do not know. For the life of me, I do not know who made that map.
What's up, Tim? Wow, this is it's good. It's really good.
It's a wonderful map. I don't even remember where I found it. It was in my my Neil Draw or my Keelan folder on my computer, and I thought this is a good segue.
That's probably a Braggy map. It's probably Braggy. I forgot his name. He always had Braggy on his maps.
That does look like Braggy's
It
map.
does look like his, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a Braggy map. Yeah, at least the base map is a Braggy, and then someone else put the stuff on top. That might be as well.
Yeah. I like this map because it just lists out where all of these adventures are.
No, it's the best one out of any of the Living Greyhawk areas. I mean, it gives you everything. You got the reference number.
They continued afterwards too. So you
got the reference number here and everything. It's fantastic. Anna, do you have all the heraldry from all this?
No, I don't think I have all of them. I think I have a lot of them, but not all of them. And if I have them, might not have them in high enough so I can see all the details. So I have to guess a little bit. Yep.
Brian Doherty.
Oh, Doherty. Okay. Yep.
Oh, Brian Doherty. Well, Brian Doherty wrote a couple adventures I love. The one with the case of measles. Didn't he write that?
Right.
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, because he did a whole series of these that had all the old modules picked in of the whole Greyhawk setting, the Braggy maps, 15 or something like that. Yep. Yeah,
Braggy did some maps for all. I mean, that's I recognize his color
palette,
styles. Yeah.
He used some sort of software that was really cool that did those maps.
I mean, it shows the thing that a lot of people don't even realize, and that is salt marshes in Keeland. A lot of people don't even so. Baltron's Beacon placed here. It's good. It's really Sakatha's Tomb for Tomb of Lizard Kings here.
I really like. They had a lot of adventures in Living Keeland that were in the Hull Marshes or in the Dreadwood. They had a few that were in Gradsel. They had some up near the Rushmores, quite a few around Krylor. They had a couple up around the Axewood, I think. But the one I did like a lot of the Living Keoland adventures. I thought that many of them were very well done. So that was a lot of fun. And one of the things that I'm in the process of doing now, so there are some features from Living Keoland that are making their way into our Neil Draw campaign. So for example, the National Academy of Wizardry is an organization that was created for Living Keoland. Well, you don't have to have those Living Keoland modules to create your National Academy of Wizardry and describe what they're about, because there are references to it in some official product. And it's really easy to just say, this is, it's almost the Hogwarts of Keoland in a way.
Yeah.
So, that is the university in Neil Draw, where if you're a mage, that's where you go to be trained. Because Keoland, and that's one of the things that gets described, there's the Silent Ones article.
Right.
In one of the Living Greyhawk journals. It was an issue number 1 or issue number?
It may be 0 or 1.
01. I cannot remember which issue it was.
They're rivals,
talks about
correct?
The Silent Ones.
Yeah. They're rivals.
Yeah, they are rivals. And that's because when Keoland was founded, the Nahelis and the Rollas wanted tight control on magic. So you had to be a nobleman to learn magic. It was very strictly regulated and controlled. And if you were a commoner and you learned magic, they didn't want you practicing magic. They literally ran you out of town. And it wasn't until I think the rule of Tavish the Great that he decided that, you know what, I can make use of these magic users. And so he started the National Academy of Wizardry to formally train magic users. You have to be licensed to use magic in Keoland. And there's a list of certain types of spells that you're not allowed to use. If you use them, you're considered evil and you're a criminal, and they will lock you up or execute you or do other nasty things to you. So that is something that's made its way into our Neil Draw. So that becomes a political faction, and the rivalry between them and the Silent Ones is something that can be explored. The Imperial Military Academy, for your fighters, is something else that has made its way into our Keoland. There's a couple of other organizations in Living Keoland that I'm going to bring into my game. So one of the things that we had in our game fairly recently, we had something called the Dread War. We had some half-elven refugees got driven out of the country they've been living in. They decided to go to the Dreadwood, and they just moved in so much as not so much as a buy your leave. That says the Dreadwood's ours now. And of course, the Sylvan Elves are going, we don't think so. And of course, the kingdom is going, we don't think so. So there's a little bit of some conflict that got resolved.
Where were the elves from originally?
They were from Selene originally, and then they went to Sterich, and then they went to the Duchy of Ulick, and they got driven out of the Duchy of Ulick.
Because they're half elves?
No, because they're assholes.
Well, okay.
But there were several thousand of them.
All right, well, that's good. That's awesome. I love that.
So that whole situation got resolved, and so we have veterans of that conflict.
Nice.
Who if you think about like veterans from our wars, you get people who get physically injured, they lose limbs, they become disabled, they have PTSD. So what I'm doing is I'm addressing the aftermath of the Dread War. What happened to the soldiers who fought in that war? And so I'm going to be creating a kind of a Greyhawk version of the American Legion.
Cool. And
having them play a kind of a social role in the city life. Because Mike had asked me a question a little while ago about, is my game really political? And the answer to that is yes.
Sounds like it.
Yes, wow. We have a very heavy soap opera kind of a feel to our campaign.
What's amazing about the Dreadwood is, number one, it's completely within the boundaries of Keeland, right?
Mhm.
Two, how diverse the adventuring is here, based just like Anna and our Shield lands are completely different. Everyone's Dreadwood that they run in is so diversely changed. It's yours is elves coming in. A lot of them are evil cults of druids running through, necromancy,
Right.
undead running through. I've seen, all sorts of stuff.
There's a green dragon in there.
Yeah, there's a green dragon running around. Yeah, there's all sorts of options that you can do with the Dreadwood. It seems as varied as a lot of other, more varied than I've seen in a lot of places, which is cool. Yeah, definitely a neat place. So
Yeah, you there's so much that you can do in the Dreadwood, no matter what kind of a character you're playing, because it is so big and so dangerous and so untamed. You could have an entire campaign just in the Dreadwood if you wanted to.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, don't go in the Pine Barrens. You don't let the
Wouldn't the Dreadwood be so much more impressive though if it was the size of the Bisbee Forest? Just
Yeah,
the
but it's
Dreadwood
one of
hogging up half of
Yeah.
Keeland. That would be awesome.
It is fairly big though. It's
Oh
like
yeah,
what,
yeah.
quarter of the Vesvi roughly.
But it's down there in that corner where you can ignore it.
That's why I like it though.
But
like
it is a fairly sizable forest. It's a couple of 100 miles across for sure. So yeah.
Unless you're from Saltmarsh, there's
Yeah, and
We'll see
honestly,
how big
I've
it is.
always
You're not
thought
going through it.
Saltmarsh is a backwater. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And I can't remember if this is canon or not, but for us, the Dreadwood, the Silverwood, and the Axewood were at one point all one big forest.
I can get I can agree with that. It was like the Adrin, the Grandwood, and so on. They were connected back in the.
That's the Hold Forest Holland theory for Middle Earth too, right?
Yeah, but
forests were much more grand back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, before humans started cutting them down to create agricultural lands for cultivation.
And it makes me think about the area where I live now, because I live in central Ohio, which is what they call flyover country. It's all farms. You get outside of the cities and it's all farms, and it's pretty flat and it's very open.
Yeah.
But during the colonial period, it was all one big forest.
All of Europe was forest in the Stone Age, almost all of it.
All right. So, you look at Ohio now and you compare it to Ohio 250, 300 years ago. And then think about Keoland, which has been in existence for about 900 years or so. Yeah. When the 12 houses came out of Slorotten's tunnel, there were some Sul already here, what they call the first comer houses. And then you have the Uridians coming in from the north, and the Flan who are already here. You have all of these diverse peoples coming in. The land was not very well settled at that time, but in 900 years, they had plenty of time to cut down a lot of trees and build a lot of farms.
Yep. And the Dreadwood is about 280 miles east to west, or like from side to side, from east to west.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty big forest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And because,
about 100 or so north to south. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you have such a big forest that is so wild and you have magic involved and areas, you can't. One of the most dangerous places in the Dreadwood you can go is the Tower of Velitas. It means that there's lots of places to have all kinds of adventures in the Dreadwood, and that's why I said you could have your whole campaign there if that's what you were inclined to do.
Yep, absolutely, and it's a great place for all sorts of adventures, all sorts. It's a favorite place of mine. That in the Vespi are just awesome. I love forests because you really.
Well, and I like rangers, so yes, I love that kind of adventuring.
Definitely. What? Okay, so some questions here. The gist of where your campaign, like, what is the main goal?
So our campaign, and so there's usually not a overall goal to the campaign. It's just ongoing. The story changes because very often we play the same characters for a long period of time. Now we'll change characters. We'll get bored of one character, like your group does. We get bored of one character when we introduce another one. Right now I'm playing two characters. I'm playing Theala. And she's actually not my principal character right now. I have a what I call my swashbuckler. And she is the High Herald for the Royal District.
Okay.
She has a lot of work that she does with the city government and with the crown itself. So there's a lot of political stuff that goes on.
How much game time has elapsed in Theala's, Greyhawk life?
Game time.
Yeah.
Let's see. She got introduced to the campaign setting somewhere around 579, I think.
Pre-war.
Yeah, pre-Greyhawk Wars. And so at that point in time, her very first adventures were up in the lands of Ayus and the Perrin lands. Later on, she had adventures in Furiundi and Verbabank. She went to one of my favorite stories with her was when we were going to the caverns of Sajkanth. And when you're traveling to where the caverns are, there's you're climbing up into the mountains, and there's a place in the mountains where it's very icy. And she had a slip and fall. She's way up in these. Yeah, we're climbing way up around Igwil's Horn. There's actually a description in that module where if you are unlucky with the ice, you can fall off a cliff and you fall in this lake and it will kill you. Well, she fell, and she fell into the lake, and she survived the fall. Miracle of miracles. And heard this voice calling to her and encouraging her to swim and get out of the cold water. And when she found the voice, she found that it was actually a magical sword. So she took the sword with her, and the sword kept trying to get her to do things. Well, it turned out that the sword was the sword of Kos.
Nice.
Yeah. She got rid of it eventually, but that was a lot of this and that. So that was one of my favorite stories for my early days of playing Theala, was when she fell off the side of the mountain into a frozen icy lake. And by miracle of miracles, the fall did not kill her.
Well, look at it this way. Smeagol finds a ring at the bottom of a lake. Why not find the sword of Kos at a river at the bottom of a lake that you fall in? I mean,
Yeah. And I don't know if that's what my GM was thinking at the time.
Yeah.
But that's what happened. So I'm very fond of that module because that was such a fun adventure with all the stuff that went on.
It's a great adventure
related to that. Yeah.
Did you run Tharsden afterwards?
Kind of. So our GM was starting a plot thread related to the Lost Caverns of Sajkanth, related to Tharsden. And the player knew who Tharsden was and wanted nothing to do with it. So he asked me if I was interested, and I said, sure, why not? So that actually started a very long backstory plot line, a series of adventures. I can't remember if he specifically ran us through that module.
Okay.
I think so, but it's been a really long time, so I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
But she had this very long running thing where my character had a destiny to defeat the cultists of Tharsden to make sure that he never got out, and she succeeded in that. And she paid a price, and the price that she paid for being successful in her mission was that the entire world forgot she existed.
Well, that would suck.
Well, it does and it doesn't. Yeah, it caused her problems because her own family forgot her. And she had siblings. Her parents had passed, but she had living siblings. She had kids. Her kids forgot her. But what it meant for her was that the surviving cultists of Therisden would no longer pursue her.
Okay.
And her family would be safe from them. So that was when she moved to Keolan, and that was when she met and married the Baron of the Axewood.
Nice.
Yeah, fresh start. Exactly, Pat. She got a fresh start.
Nothing
So
wrong
sometimes
with that.
things like that can happen to your character, and you look at it and you go, God, that's terrible. Oh my God, where's my crunchy bits? Where's my glory for doing this terrible thing? But you have to remember that most of the people in the Flanaes have no idea who Therisden is.
True. So
So there's really no glory from defeating the cultists of Therisden. It's just that you keep the world safe, and you have to be happy with the knowledge that you did that.
Mhm.
So
I'm
that was
glad you mentioned
a
that.
really fun storyline, and that took years in real time for that to progress.
Cool.
Yeah,
So
somehow our credit card still sent us bills.
you sent me
Yeah.
pics of the Geoff banner from against the Giants from the 25th anniversary edition, if I recall, right?
I did. Yeah. So I was hoping to have the time and an opportunity to talk about that part of my Greyhawk. So that is the current Greyhawk campaign that I am running full time right now. In other words, I am the only GM for that game. That's an online game
Nice.
that was started by Jason Zavoda, who created the Zavoda Index.
Oh, okay. I remember
So
Jason had the
Jason,
game. Yeah.
probably about a year before he passed away, decided he wanted to run another campaign. And so he invited me and some other people, which includes Rich Diola, Longitalos on Cannon Fire, who plays Lord Brezen, who you've had as a guest.
Yep.
Was one of the players, and a couple other folks. And he started this campaign, and he ran it for probably 6 or 8 months. We played every other week, and so I'm for the first time. It's the first time I've ever played a dwarf. I'm playing a dwarf fighter who eventually she's now a paladin. She's a paladin of Moradin now, and we were having such a blast with this game. Oh my God, we were having so much fun. One of the things that we learned was never to crawl into the mouth of a frog. We came across this frog statue in a swamp in Jeff. So the theme of the game is against the giants.
Right.
But the campaign kind of took a sideways turn with the last adventure that Jason ran for us. We crawled into the mouth of this frog statue to investigate it, and we found ourselves on a moon, I think. We didn't know it until the adventure was over.
On Luna, right?
I think so, yeah. I actually missed the last session that Jason ran
I heard
because
I
think I had something for work I had to do, or I was sick. I forget what it was.
Good old Jason.
That sounds so extreme for him.
No.
It surprised me actually. And yet it was a lot of fun.
That makes me
and
happy.
we had to, we had just had some great times in that. One of the players just about killed one of the other characters because he wasn't paying attention to what he was doing, and so we joke about that a lot. Jason was getting more and more ill by the time he wrapped up that adventure, and he finally said, I'm too sick, I can't do this anymore. And we were all very sorry to hear it because we were just really having such a good time. So we decided we wanted to keep the campaign going, and I had ideas. So I took over running the game, and I've been running it ever since.
Cool. Very cool.
And that
so
takes place up in this area up here.
It's in everything takes place in Jeff. We had one very brief kind of a side trip to Istavin recently because the players were gonna go to the capital of Jeff, Gorna, by going through the Stark Mounts. So we didn't really play in anything in Sterich. It was just kind of a mentioned kind of thing, hand waved. Right now, what the players are trying to do is gather intelligence so that the Duke of Jeff and the Commandant of the Grand March can plan an invasion and retake the city of Gorna. So when I took over this adventure from Jason, I plotted out a story that would take place in 3 acts. So this campaign will have a start and a finish. Okay. Unlike our Keolan game, which has been a continuation of the same campaign that we started in 576 with other characters, but it's all the same campaign. Mm-hmm. This campaign will have a start, and will have a finish. Now, I don't know when I will finish it. It may take me another year to finish it. It took me 2 months just to run G3 because and I cut out half of the module. But because of the way I ran it, it took a very long time to get through the module. And that was one of the reasons why I sent you another picture, which was the picture of the giantess.
Yeah, let me bring her up too.
Yeah. So that is a picture I found online somewhere. I don't know who made that picture.
It's a Paizo picture, actually. So
is it really? Okay.
Yeah, it's just Paizo. It's fine. It won't be a problem.
I thought it was going to be a good picture for Queen Fruppy.
Fruppy.
So
happy Thanksgiving.
Fruppy is the wife of King Snur Ironbelly.
Oh, okay. I didn't remember that name. Yeah, Snur.
And she uses a big old mace, and that's why I picked that picture. She's actually a little more attractive in this picture than the actual written description of Queen Fruppy. But at one point in time, I had gotten. I'm not running the G series in order. I did run G1, and I think I was in the campaign 2 years before I actually ran it. And then over the summer, I ran G3 and finished that up a couple of months ago. We do have some kind of ongoing recurring villains. So my players have come up against a Clavdra a couple of times.
Yeah, we have same picture I used for her. That was General.
Yeah, and that is from a D&D product. That is a picture of a Clavdra. I forget which product that came out of, but I believe that
later
is
edition.
What's that?
It's a later edition.
Yeah. But I thought it was a good picture for her, and because she's got her tentacle rod there. So the players killed her once, and her clan cloned her and brought her back. They came across her again. Of course, she's a worshiper of Therisden, and there's a temple of Therisden in the Hall of the Fire Giants. And so part of their mission when they went there was to destroy that. Moradin actually sent them on that mission. When they met Queen Fruppy, she actually had managed to corner them in part of the first level. She decided to actually cut a deal with them. So here's where some role playing took place with this, the kind of the political thing that I like, because she didn't like a Clavdra. She didn't like the influence that the Temple of Therisden had on her husband and her people. Now he's trying to use a Clavdra for his own ends. So they start learning about some of the giant politics, which is important to the overall arc of the game, because the Cloud Giants are the big bad villain in the Silver Anniversary Edition of Against the Giants. Whereas, like if you look at Storm King's Thunder, which was written by a lot of the people, some of the people who were on the Living Jeff Triad wrote Storm King's Thunder, and a lot of that kind of stuff was taken from that. When you look at the Living Jeff modules, it's the Storm Giants who are the villain there. But in this module, it's the Cloud Giants, and that's what I'm using is the Cloud Giants and Big Bad. So they're getting into the politics of these Cloud Giants because they're getting information that's going to be helpful to them for having some kind of a resolution. Now that how they ultimately resolve the giant invasion will be up to the players. But there will be several different pathways for them to follow, and they'll pick the one that they want, and they'll either succeed or they won't succeed. One of the things that they did manage to do, there's a town called Durson in this module. They went there, and Jason kind of ran a little bit more of a Monty Hall game, a lot more access to magic than I typically run as a DM. But I didn't want to take away the flavor of Jason's game, so I kept all of that. They have some really wonderful tactics that they use when they're fighting giants. When they went to Durson, they abandoned all of those tactics and tried to fight the giants head on in a conquered human city. And they got their butts handed to them. But they managed to extricate themselves from it, and they were able to make an ally through the course of the adventure. So they actually have an ally among the cloud giants now, who's been very helpful to them. One of the things that Jason introduced when he was running the game, there's a magic item that one of the players has. It's an intelligent sword named Mimir. And I've made decisions as to what Mimir is about. And so hopefully by the time I finish the campaign, the player will actually learn a lot more about that sword and where it came from and why it is what it is. But it always wants to, anytime it sees a giant, it wants to attack it.
So is this Lord Breslin the one that killed the Collaborator the first time? Because Rich is on. Because he bragged about it for weeks.
He participated. So like I said, Lord Breslin. Yeah, well, they could not do any of the things that they were doing without Lord Breslin. I'll just put it to you that way. Lord Breslin is not the kind of magic user that throws a fireball or lightning bolt and kills a bunch of the enemy at once. He's the one that gives them the buff magic that lets the tanks in the group, the fighters in the group, do their thing.
Cool.
And so he had picked a really good suite of spells that let the group do a lot of what they do. And when they think to use those tactics, they kick ass. And if they forget to use that suite, then sometimes they struggle a little bit.
So I'm going to ask now, because it came up in the audience a couple of times, any backup openings or whatever, do you always have full groups? Because people in the community are always looking for good games.
Right now, I've got a full group.
Got it. That's awesome.
Yep. But if we lose a player, we'll look to replace that player, very likely.
Very cool.
And I'm not sure what's going to happen when I actually finish the Giants campaign. Like I said, it's probably going to take me another year or so. We play every other week to actually finish the campaign and finish the story arc. We're getting close.
Are you doing some of the extra adventures that were done, like the ones in Dungeon with Sterich, that are additions to this? I think Eric Boyd did actually a couple of them, if I recall.
He did, and I haven't decided yet. I have run some of the Living Jeff adventures. And so there's some subplots with the Fae, because they did that a lot in the Living Jeff.
You talked to Eric Mengi a lot about it, or just?
I've never talked to Eric Mengi, and I need to reach out to him because I have some questions for him about that campaign.
I would do it.
But yeah, I loved the Living Jeff stuff. I thought it was wonderful.
Cool. So we got two people that Lord Taker and both Hager said they'd be interested. Just so you're aware that there's a lot of, like I said, this is one of the reasons why we're doing these, is to point out that there's some great stuff going on in the community.
Start a list.
Start a list up. So okay, so you got Keelan going that you're playing in, and you have this that you're DMing in, correct?
Right.
Okay.
I do run some in our Keelan game, but I probably run about 25% of the game right now.
Okay.
And then I've woven my Low Nakar stuff into my Keelan game, and then I'll do one shots with Low Nakar with the virtual conventions. I'm probably going to run a Low Nakar adventure for virtual GaryCon.
Oh, nice, very good. I know Josh is looking for a lot of virtual players.
Yeah,
good.
You're one of the most. Yeah, you're one of the most active in the Greyhawk community. You're playing in my game too, so it's yeah.
Yeah, and I have to admit, there's times when I wonder if I haven't overloaded myself. I'm playing in 4 games right now. Anna's game, my regular game, the Giants game that I'm running, and then I'm a player in Rich's game.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Absolutely love everything that I'm doing. And I love it. What I love about being able to play in so many games is I learn so much from other people about their take on Greyhawk, how they run their Greyhawk, the lore that they come up with. So I feel very greedy, but I'm just like, give me,
No,
give
but
me,
that's
give me.
the cool thing. That
Be a
I love it.
sponge.
Yep.
It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I want to develop. If I develop all the stuff just to run my games, that will be the worst overkill, over prep in gaming history. So I'm so glad that I can kind of give it away to the rest of the D&D community and Greyhawk communities for others to use, so to speak. That's the whole idea. So
yeah. There's some really great ideas that other people in the community have. And I love being able to share and talk about those ideas with other people because it just helps my own game and helps my own enjoyment.
Yep.
So please note that there's going to be a lot of content for the virtual part of GaryCon. You got to get a virtual badge. Got to get one so you can sign up for events. Okay, I don't think it's that much money, but that's the way to go. Unless you're DMing, as you DM for so many adventures, you don't have to, then you get it compensated back. So, but just note that there's going to be a lot going on. I know not everyone can go. They're out of silver badges. They sold out already. So,
oh wow,
yeah,
yep.
So, there
I was just talking to someone, it feels like a few days ago, it said there was like 90 badges left.
There was, that was Scottish Jeff posted that, and then in 2 days they were gone.
Just,
and then,
yeah, I think it was Jeff that posted that. So, yeah, Hager, I understood, I understood it sucks. So, yeah, they went real fast because everyone panicked there, Garner. As you can see, and Garner, what we're dealing with now is going to be more. But that was the first of many. I'm talking in riddles, everyone, because I don't want to get into details, but it's going to happen. So, yeah. All right. So, Amy, you what are your plans long term? Like, what do you want? Where do you see crescendos or your game going?
Great question.
Well, with my Jeff game, and I don't want to say too much since Rich is in the stream, but eventually I do want to run a big battle adventure that is going to be involved around the retaking of Gorna, and hopefully, if the campaign goes the way I want, then Jeff will be liberated, and then the rebuilding will have to begin. With my Keolan game, I don't see an end in sight for that game. The location of the campaign could change at some point, but we're having so much fun with what we're doing. I mean, we play for 12 hours at a time on Saturdays.
Oh my gosh.
We start at 11 o'clock in the morning and we end at about 11 o'clock midnight.
That's
Good Lord.
No, that's a face-to-face game, right?
Yeah, that's a face-to-face game.
Still.
And it's a very intense role playing. Now we take breaks, of course, we'll take a dinner break or whatever.
I've only done one session that long, maybe in the last 20 years. I've only done one session like that.
I'm really starting to miss face-to-face gaming. Yep.
Yeah.
There's nothing better. I mean, my guys are pains in the ass on Thursday night, and they come tired because they came from work or whatever, but I bitch too much. There's nothing better than playing in person. Really, there's not. It's so much fun just to have people in person.
Well, because there's a certain amount of socializing that's involved with an in-person game.
Yeah, you just be.
You get together and you shoot the breeze about this and that.
Yep.
That might not have anything to do with gaming, or you might have a side conversation about, we want to develop this. How are we going to develop this, or that or the other? And so there's a lot of other kinds of side things that go on besides just the gaming itself, but then you get into the gaming itself, and particularly if you are just having a really intense combat session, and it's one of those games where you can just literally see the combat, or if it's just really intense role playing of situations, you lose track of time. There have been times where I've looked up at the clock, and remember what I said earlier about the reason why I don't play video games? I look up at the clock and 6 hours has gone by. And I'm like, oh my God.
Look, we got an hour 37 going already here. I mean, it's that quick, just talking, just BSing about what you've done in your game, which is really, it's so far been a blast. All right.
Right,
So,
exactly.
So, Anna, Mike, I know I've asked a lot of questions. You guys want to ask Amy some questions?
Oh, yeah, I think we covered so many bases, but I was more kind of thinking, what's the overall? Do you have any overall theme for your Greyhawk Mini? Are these disparate games that are different, or do you have like your version, your personal campaign where you keep track of things that happens and you make your own timeline and your own lore and add to it or something? Or is it more like you run cool little adventures here, cool little adventures there, but you don't connect them? Or how have you?
So I try to, yeah. So whether I'm running my own campaign or playing in my regular face-to-face game, we try to connect everything together.
Okay.
So there's no, and we create our own lore as we go. So there's a history and a timeline. You know, my face-to-face game, we're currently in the year 608. We're actually coming to the end of 608. It's almost Need Fest. And so we have a history that is so different from the published history. It's recognizable as Greyhawk, obviously, but it's not. It's not.
That's what I was getting at earlier about asking about timelines.
Right. Now, and it's a similar thing with my Giants game. Now, I have not kept as careful a track of the timeline with that game as I normally do. So the time has been fast and loose, but in game time, a couple of years has gone by. We're creating the lore of the Lost Lands as we go. It certainly is very different from the product of the Silver Anniversary Edition, because while I have run a lot of the classic stuff, I haven't run it necessarily in the original order. I've run it in the order that made sense for the story I wanted to tell. So this is a story. This is a story of elite behind the lines fighters who are struggling to overthrow an invading force and uncovering other evils along the way. I like heroic level kinds of stories, so there's always a theme of good triumphing over evil, even though the hour may get dark.
Yeah, I agree. It's good versus evil. 100%. Sometimes gray. I mean, you may have a group of thieves, you may have a group of like the Narwhal headhunters or something but it's always good versus evil for the most part. Yeah, I agree.
Right.
A question came in the audience. I can't believe we didn't ask this. Your play style, theater of the mind, miniatures, VTT.
That is a great question.
Yeah, we didn't even ask that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so for my online against the Giants game, I use a VTT for that. I use Foundry. Rich has been incredibly helpful to me in setting that up because I run Hero System and Hero is not available for Foundry. I have to use a module called Sandbox to make the automation work. So that's been a big work in progress. But I like Foundry a lot. And I've used other VTTs in the past. For Virtual Greyhawk Con, I used it to run a 5e game. So the next time I run a game at a virtual convention, I'll use Foundry. I think it works well for me. For my in-person game, it's mostly theater of the mind. I have this very like a classroom size dry erase board.
Cool.
On the wall in my game room. And as I mentioned, my friend Greg, who does most of the running of that game, he's a graphic artist. So he'll draw the maps. He'll draw other things on the dry erase board to give me a visual. And then we'll scour the internet and find pictures that look like our characters, that look like a place, that look like what we're doing. And we'll theater of the mind it that way. I don't typically use minis in my game, my in-person game. That's just never been our play style, and which may surprise you because those of you who know me know that I paint minis as a hobby.
You have a 3D printer. And
I have a 3D printer. I have I have a filament printer and I have a resin printer.
Yeah.
And I've printed a ton of stuff. In fact, my box of shame is huge of all the stuff that I printed and haven't painted. Right. I have been doing a lot of painting the past couple of weeks. I have some projects that I'm working on. I'll put it on my table for like visual inspiration. But when we do combat, we in my in-person game, we don't do the thing with the minis. We theater of the mind it.
Okay. It's a great question. Great question there. Mike, any questions for Amy?
Oh, I was going to bring up Pat's question.
Go for it.
You did. No, you already did it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right.
I've got a lot of energy tonight, so I've kind of been
it's wonderful. It's
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think here. You're in 4 different games
That's
at the same time. This is the most I've done, I think, at the same time is 3.
Plus work.
Yeah, plus work.
Right. It's not the first time I've done that, but yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really having a hard time thinking of the
What
question
majority of the games do you miss because of your work schedule? Do you miss 1 out of every 4 a week? And because I know with your schedule, it's on off times, right?
Are you asking Mike or me?
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you, Amy. Yeah, with
nursing.
Yeah.
And to write on that question, do you ever inject any of your work knowledge into your games?
So the answer to your question, Mike, is yes. Because I am a nurse. I'm a nurse. I'm an ER nurse. So I obviously know what trauma does to the human body. I usually have a pretty good idea of what's realistic in terms of injuries and how they could be managed and healed, and illnesses. I actually wrote an article for a gaming magazine called The Adventurers Club back in the 90s.
Cool.
And it was published by Hero Games. I think it was Adventurers Club number 27 was the issue. It was written for a modern setting, but it talked about pharmacology and drugs and the effects that they could have, and how a GM could use that to describe certain things in gameplay. One of the things that Steve Long, who is the current owner of Hero Games, asked me once, he said, is there a drug that I could use that would I could use to torture a character to where they would feel excruciating pain, but they would never pass out. They'd never fall unconscious. And I said, if you want to come up with a fantasy drug for that, you certainly could. Ew. But there's no modern world equivalent where you can prevent somebody from passing out. Somebody who's going to suffer a certain amount of pain, eventually they're going to fall unconscious, because there's going to be certain autonomic responses that's going to cause their blood pressure to drop, and they're just going to pass out. But if you wanted to do something from a fantasy concept, you certainly could. There was another question that you had asked, Jay, and I can't remember what, because I answered Mike's question.
Like with your schedule, do you miss any games? Because 4 a week plus a nursing schedule has got to be difficult.
It is. So when I was still playing in Maryland, with the group that I was with when I first started learning Hero System, we had a Saturday game from 1 to 4, and then we had a Thursday night game from 7 to 11. And I worked Monday through Friday from 3 to 11 at a county jail. But if things were slow, sometimes I could call my boss and say, can I go home early? And if nothing was going on, he'd say, yeah, you can go ahead and go home. I'll just take call. And so sometimes I was able to join that Thursday night game. Sometimes I couldn't. My current supervisor is great, because I'm a nursing instructor right now. And sometimes I have to teach evening classes. So when I took this job last January, she asked me about my schedule, and I said, the only thing I ask of you of my schedule is that you don't schedule me to teach an evening class on Mondays and Tuesdays. Because Monday night is Rich's game, and Tuesday night is my Giants game.
Awesome.
So the past couple of years, I've done pretty good. Now, when I was still working in the ER during the pandemic, I had to work every other weekend. I didn't have control over my schedule. So I would ask to work every weekend. And that meant that I could almost always make my Monday night and Tuesday night game.
Well, that's cool to hear that, those are probably, hey, you got to rank them all. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was the kind of person when I was in college and I was scheduling my classes, I scheduled them around my favorite television shows. If my favorite TV show, like my favorite soap opera, came on during a certain class, I didn't sign up for that section. I know what my priorities are.
Yeah, now you can do the same with games. You can
exactly
work around the game schedule.
Yeah, have you ever injected like a D&D term accidentally into teaching? I've done into discussions and people are like, what the hell are you talking about?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, it was funny. One of the things that I do part-time is I'm a legal nurse consultant. So I am an expert witness in nursing malpractice cases.
Oh.
And I had a deposition yesterday in one of my cases, and I met with the attorney who hired me online last week, because this case is in North Carolina. And he was asking me about my email address. And I said, yeah, that's my gaming handle. And it turns out he's a D&D player too.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So that was really fun. We had a
Very
fun
cool
side conversation about D&D.
Lucky.
Wow.
You can derail a lot of real. I had a doctor's appointment. I had a new doctor, and he played D&D, and he knew, are you doing the Greyhawk maps? And we got derailed so bad that his nurse came in and said, oh, like time.
Yeah, time is running out. Well,
Yep.
The funny thing, my current job as a nurse educator, I do something called simulation, and that's all I do now, and I love it. But what I do in simulation is I work with mannequins that are electronically controlled. I remote control their vital signs and their assessments and all that stuff from a control room, and the students go in the room to deliver simulated care to the patient. So I can change the vital sign settings and have a realistic response.
No
based
theater of the mind in this game.
Exactly.
No, there's no
It's
theater mind in that.
Bloody,
But
like crazy.
I'll create very realistic looking wounds and put them on the mannequin, like a bed sore or something. The students will give medications, and then the patient will actually, when I talk to the students, there's a microphone in the mannequin from the control room. I talk through this mic, and the sound comes out from the mannequin, and I act like the patient. So if they're not doing, if they're not talking to the patient the way they should, the patient will react, and it's like gaming.
Wow, you're like a DM sitting there doing. But
I'm like a professional DM, and I get paid to do it.
Yeah,
I love my job. It's awesome.
That's cool.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
All right. Last question of the night. What is your hopes and dreams for Greyhawk in the next couple of years?
Good question. Excellent.
Well,
thank you.
I want to be able to continue developing some of the ideas that I've started on. And I want to be able to see and hopefully incorporate some of the ideas that other people have. There was a time a few years ago where, I would kind of complain about WotC and the fact that they either never publish anything for Greyhawk, or they just kind of give it, kind of a nod. Yeah, we say the word, but it's really not a Greyhawk product. I have come to the conclusion that a number of other people have come to, that it's probably just as well that WotC doesn't publish anything for Greyhawk.
Yes.
Because every time they come out with a new Greyhawk product, they screw it up. And when I look at what they did to Spelljammer, I need no further evidence than that. So I am just as happy to get my Greyhawk from the fan community, from people who know the setting, who love the setting, and have some really great ideas that fit the setting. I think if WotC never publishes another thing for Greyhawk, I think that's just fine.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people agree with you. Some don't. Some like, what's the harm of it? You're not going to be playing it anyway. But I think we're better off leave well enough alone at this point. I think where we are, because the community is putting out some great stuff.
Exactly. They're putting out some wonderful things. And it's not like WotC's putting, like everything that WotC puts out is terrible.
No.
And it's not like the other stuff that's being published is terrible. There's some great stuff out there. I bought Storm King's Thunder, and there are some great ideas in that I've incorporated into my Giants game. So there is certainly plenty of resources for me, particularly if I don't have a lot of time to develop something. And I have to say, I am very excited about what Troll Lord Games is doing with republishing some of the stuff from the Gygax estate and the Hermit and all that. Really excited about that.
Awesome. So life is good, it sounds like, for you in your gaming and in your DMing and in career, which is always a good thing. Sounds like you get some peace of mind right now.
Pandemic was hard. It was really, really hard
everyone.
on me. And well, and the effects of the pandemic on my profession were very difficult. But I am very happy in my current job. I think I have got just the best job ever. So, things have gotten better for me personally. And I hope, I certainly hope, I know other people have had their struggles, and I just hope that other people bounce back the way that I did when it comes to my professional development.
So I think this community was there for a lot of people at that time, and I think that was one of the reasons we've been very successful. Everyone has been. I think we were right place, right time.
Yeah, and it's funny. There was a guy in the gaming industry. His name is Bruce Harlick. He worked for Iron Crown Enterprises.
Great stuff.
And we had a conversation back in the mid-90s, and he told me that bad economic times are great for the gaming industry, because when people either don't have any money or they're stuck at home or whatever it is, that's good for gaming, because gaming is an outlet for them to have some social interaction and have a good time and do it inexpensively.
Yeah. It's cheap to sit at home and just meet with some friends and play games rather than go on vacations and whatnot.
Exactly.
Yeah. And there's more to come. I think we are seeing some unbelievable content come out now. And it's really exciting. I am really looking forward to it continuing. So, Amy, thanks. This was a great discussion.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at that. The 2 hours flew by.
It really did. And I really appreciate your having me. I've enjoyed being, I like to talk. So it's been fun to be able to talk about it.
It was awesome. So thank you.
Of course, It was fantastic. But, topics come up, you're always welcome to join in on those, so we'll keep things rolling and keep you in the loop on stuff, because there's always, there's always something that everyone in the community, someone's an expert on something, and you're the expert on the loan a car, man. I just, like, when we first had that discussion, I was like, what the hell is this? It was good. It's great to learn about those things.
Yeah. I am planning to do some more development with that, because I'm still just really fascinated by that little thing that Nathan Ellis did. I think it came up with a great idea, and it's been a lot of fun.
And we will see you very soon. Definitely. Let's do some shout outs here, and then I'm going to go over some things. Okay. Please sit by for the 2 giveaways, and we'll figure out who we're rating into. Mike, what is going on? Happy Thanksgiving to you. What do you got going on?
Happy Thanksgiving. Well, I got a new map up on Greyhawk.
Oh, cool.
If you haven't seen it already.
Let's take a look.
It's nothing
special. I like that.
That's the kind of projects I do. Just silly things. So
that's a great one.
It's always good, man.
I'm going to use it for something, definitely.
That's awesome. Minimalist map.
Mm-hmm.
Any games going on over the holiday?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe not. Not tomorrow. That's for sure. But we'll see. Maybe probably after the holidays. Mostly football for me.
Well, it's great, Mike. Thanks a lot, and enjoy with family and friends.
Thanks for coming, Amy.
Over the holiday.
You're welcome.
Anna, what's going on?
I just posted my
Subtino.
the big post on Greyhawk or Shieldlands heraldry. I kind of went down a rabbit hole. It took me a week to put it together, or like about five days or something like that. And it's kind of funny. People say, "Oh, you must have done an enormous amount of work." This is kind of my little side distractions from my main projects, so to speak. But thank you everyone who supports me. This has been it's been a rough long time, but this is trying to get me back, so to speak, and I'm starting to feel like I'm catching up on where I want to be. And this was a deep dive of the kind that I really felt that I wanted to do. And now I feel like I'm starting to have a real good grip on my version of the Shieldlands. And this also gave me a lot of good food for thought in order to how to approach the heraldry and the deep dive. And William Henry Dvorak, he reached out to me about the Horned Knights that he did for his Patreon. So I'm working on some heraldry there, and that is also because then it ties perfect in, because my next heraldry deep dive is Horned Society. And because I feel it's one of these underused at all, and it also ties into my campaign, so that's why I'm going to spend maybe 6 months or so on fiddling about it and thinking of it and taking notes and ideas and stuff. And so you should look at William Henry Dvorak's Wicked Studios, his Greyhawk stuff too on Patreon and stuff, because he put up some awesome knights and their backstories and stuff. I think his knights might be a little bit cuddlier than my Horned Knights, but we definitely were on to very similar ideas, so to speak. So we'll see if Will adopts my heraldry. It might be too gruesome. We'll see. Yeah. So and that heraldry there, by the way, that is Brian Bloomcloth's design, and I kind of made the shield on his idea, so to speak. So yeah. So
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yep. So that is kind of really cool. So so he'd done some really awesome stuff. So I think this is a perfect example of how you can collaborate different Greyhawk creators. You can collaborate, and one can add to the other one, which I think is super cool. I love that. So please, anyone who wants to reach out to collaborate on things, that's wonderful. So so that is coming out, and I haven't opened it up to everybody because I want to hold it on, but a couple of more days and next week or something, everybody can get it. It's 560 megabytes download for these 50 shields, and a new updated Shieldlands province map from Shieldlands in 576. I've tweaked some things and stuff when I'm looking through the history and stuff. So it's a good deep dive into the heraldry of the Shieldlands. So there you have the different provinces, some towns and cities, the stories behind the designs of each of them. So it's not only like, here it is, it's like, why did the shield end up looking the way they do? So there you have the deep shuttle delve, so it's that's the Iusian version, that's the old version of deep shuttle delve. And a little bit of why they were designed that way. That is the Hamada the Cruel, of course.
Yeah.
He needs to have a
lives.
So it was his personal shield, so to speak. So that's
guaranteed. That's the first time that he's ever had heraldry.
Oh yeah, I don't think I've searched for these heraldry for years and haven't figured out. That's why I took it. That was Castle Mukos or Earl or the Baronet Mukos that came from Greyhawk.
This is my favorite. That's right
that's Bolam. It's his design, so to speak. It was one of these that went out early, and he wanted a golden eagle, a version of it on it, and he had the Woolworth colors in the background and the wall under it, so to speak. And this is Stasser Ayu's version, the latest version of Stasser after he took over. And then you can go up a little bit. Next one, that is Stasser in the Shieldlands. and that is also the early shields. If you manage to
The
find
Kingdom.
one of these early shields, that's before Shieldland was formed, when it was under Erdi, under the Great Kingdom. So then the shield looked like that. So I have
Awesome.
variants, how a lot of these shields, how they have developed. Some of them are in original pristine conditions, and then if you find them rusty 600 years later, what they look like. So, and also there's some kind of anecdotes where you can find some of these shields, like where the Hamada, the cruel shield, is, so to speak. So I put that in my campaign, placed it, so it hangs on a very particular wall in my
I
campaign
almost did something dumb, man.
that
I
Amy's
almost...
character might get to very soon, because her character is not far from that shield.
Oh, cool.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I almost hit the download button while we're live. That would have been too
Oh.
smart. Yeah.
I told you, Jay, it's not a perfect show if you don't hit a wrong
Right.
button.
Exactly,
Well,
might be a
we
wrong
crashed
button,
before
so,
we even
yeah.
started tonight, so
Yeah.
that was a great
So yeah,
start.
so this
So-
so this is what my kind of coming out on a heraldry project, to see how deep you can
So,
go into heraldry,
download
and I felt like this was my coming of age as heraldic, or whatever you say it in English, when I looked at all the other people that do heraldry for various campaigns and stuff, and I felt like I really wanted to. And now I feel like I'm starting to get there in Shieldlands. So I want to, each area that I do deep dives in, I want to do it. And the good thing is it's not that tedious. This was a lot of thinking, some research that I did in between, and probably about 10 hours a week of work, which is not much.
Okay.
10 hours of Photoshop work is not much.
For you.
Yeah. So 10 hours of Photoshop work is not that much. Heraldry is a wonderful distraction. So there will be at least quarterly or something like that. I will put up new cool heraldry. I already have 2-3 more. So
Nice.
but this was 50, probably about 40 of them new and updated versions. So yeah.
Are you streaming Friday night?
Yes, that's the plan. I might have to stream myself, because Linda might be busy with family stuff like a lot of people, but
Yeah.
I plan to be at home and not do much. So it will be streaming as usual on Friday. So yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. So one more time, to show, I'm going to re-show this. A lot of people didn't see this. This was Courtney Coco Bunny, who's going to play in this first time ever playing D&D. I kind of got her a bunch of PDFs. I got her, yeah, she just printed it all out. So yes,
Yep. Wow.
yeah, including, so these 4 books right here: Arthur Arcana, Player's Handbook, first edition, the Glossaga, the original folio, and Jim Ward's Greyhawk Adventures, and just went to town on it. So, Razzmatazz, good to see you. That's some, well, yeah, just in PDF. So, but just to note, because it's good to see some people new, excited to play in the community, play old school, either or. So I'm really, and let's see, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what's going on. No game tomorrow night, obviously. So next stream, more than likely Sunday. If I feel enthused, there may be an off chance of a BattleTech game Saturday morning, but I don't want to make those guarantees at this point. I just can't. But you never know. So Sunday night, Anna, the art of D&D campaign balance. I think we got to talk about this.
Oh,
how
that's a good one.
You and me and Tim. If Tim's gonna go, I just don't do it. That's what Tim's gonna say. I know what he's gonna say.
Yeah.
But
that's a good one, because there are different dimensions, and you can accomplish this in many different ways. So that's a good one.
Thank you very much. So that will be on Sunday night, last stream of the week, more than likely, unless I do something Saturday morning. But and we'll get into the 43 years of my evolution of how I've gotten to where I am with my rules and stuff. Okay. Next week, Legends of Lore will be even 1 hour later than normal. I got something from my son's school, and I won't be getting. It's not done until 8:30, so it'll be 9 to 11 next Wednesday. And the reason I do that is I start my new job the week after, and I'll be in Atlanta Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday the week after. So I don't even know if I'm going to have a Legends of Lore the week after. So let's not. We don't have a topic for that yet. Don't know what my Thursday game is next week, but next big thing. That's wrong. That's wrong. This is right. A week from Sunday, okay, the 3rd of December, our next DM's Roundtable discussion. Okay, Ed Greenwood will be there. Punk Rock Jenny, who's awesome. If you've ever seen her on Instagram, you'll understand why. Will be there. I will be there. Anna will be there, and maybe one other guest. I'm not sure yet, but there may be one more. And it's also, are you ready? This is my 2-year partner stream too. I turned partner 2 years ago that day, December 3rd, 2 years ago. So a big one. Troller Game's going to do some great giveaways. So our 15th ever DMs Roundtable discussion on a week from Sunday. Okay. On the 9th, first week of working at a brand new job with a director position, and I am dumb enough to do this. Doubleheader all-star game session. One at 9 a.m. from 9 to 1, and then one from 6 p.m. to whenever we finish. It's a 2-part adventure called The Deadly Drowned. It's got how to do a lot with Altamira, and I've gotten very creative on this one. So I got Little Bird, I got Coco. It's our first time ever playing D&D. I got LJ and Cork the Mighty from Nerdy Guide to D&D playing as well. So this is 4th and 5th level characters, part 1, 9 a.m. There you go. Yes, I know you're excited. I know you're super excited. Part 2 is 2 drink minimum. Okay, Ed Greenwood, Eric Menke, Anna Darling or Definites. Okay, Eric Boyd's 50-50, but it looks like Jose Ortiz is going to jump in with Gareth the Long Arm, his Inquisitor, as well. So there you go. And that'll be part 2 starting at 6 p.m., The Deadly Drowned. So a nice doubleheader was, yes. Yeah, crazy. Why am I doing this? I don't know, because I'm nuts. But I challenge. I am going to be reaching out. If you notice all these streams, if you're not, logo's not on there yet, you have not committed yet to do something, participate in the 6th annual fundraiser for St. Jude, which is 4 days this year. So yes, I do love it. You're absolutely correct. I love
We need to change the 24-hour plus to whatever 72 hours plus, whatever the number of hours are now.
I know. So all those channels are going to run something, at least one stream. I got 3, counting the closeout show. But I'm gonna kick it off Thursday night, then do the Saturday game. I already have Ed Greenwood, Eric Mona, and Luke Gygax confirmed for my game for the and it's Eric and I were talking today. And Eric's like, "You're gonna run Child's Play?" I'm like, "No, Eric, I'm not going joke this year. It's Feast of Fiends." So we did puppets and then some last year. This year's gonna be hardcore. Yeah, he's like, "Bring it on." I'm like, "Cool." So yeah, so that's who. Unfortunately, my good friend Todd Stashwick cannot make it because he is so booked now ever since Star Trek. You know, he is just every weekend of his is booked. I'll wait to see him at GaryCon. He will be at Founders and Legends and GaryCon, which is great. So, yep. I know I'm missing stuff, but that's enough. Let's get 2 winners here. Once again, just like Sunday night, you get your choice of 2 adventures or 1 compilation book, okay? And I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't have, courtesy of Patrick, if you don't take advantage of this while they last, D1, 2, and 3 are here. That would be 2 adventures, because D1 and 2's together is 1, D3's together is another. That's always good if you don't have the Drow series. We just talked about that in a previous Gavin. So, last call, exclamation point drawing. So, that's Thursday night. Don't worry, Todd already told me he'd stop by. Yeah, Todd's in on a talk show. Absolutely, at GaryCon. Definitely, he's so great to hang out with. I agree 100%. Yeah. Hopefully, I don't. I'm DMing 6 times with multiple Anna. I don't know. It's gonna be a busy week, week and a half there at GaryCon. All right, let me close this out. Compilation book would be something like this. I gave out a Scarlet Brotherhood, a Treasures of Greyhawk. I still have one more Scarlet Brotherhood and Treasures of Greyhawk. You know, these sticker books. Yeah, those are compilation books, right? Not just adventures. About double the size. So, here we go. My brain just shut off. What am I doing? Hit this right button. Have not crashed anything yet. Here we go. First winner. Dave, Guild Superior. Congrats, dude.
Hey.
Second winner. Keith, Rogier. Both of you let me know what you want. All right? You know where I live. Grats, everyone. XT, you should be getting your dice, by the way, if you haven't gotten them already. I sent them out, so, yep. Grats to the winners, and I will get them out Friday. Okay? Can't do it tomorrow. So, who do you want to raid into? I know Bones is on. So I may just do Bones. Old World Charm is on, and they normally raid into Bones, and are probably finishing up. So I may. Phoenix is on too. Yeah, I know. All right, I'll raid into John Phoenixy. He does so much for the community. It won't. Bones will understand on that. Amy, thanks. I hope you had fun.
I did. I had a wonderful time. Thank you again for having me.
Very cool.
Oh, it was wonderful. Thank you.
Anna, Mike, everyone, community, everyone have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Yep. And just note, we'll be back. Maybe back Saturday. More likely it won't be till Sunday. Enjoy watching football. Enjoy, just eating. Enjoy spending time with your family. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Courtney. I will see you all soon, and have a great evening. I'm gonna hit the wrong button. I know it now. I haven't hit many wrong buttons. All right. I didn't. All right, there we go.
Good. Yeah.
I will instruct John and someone. Well, I should tell another stream where the raid. I should do that. So I'll do that. Say, ask him to raid into Bones after he's done. But I see me showing up. There we are. Dana, if you could stick going around, I'm going to ask you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone enjoy their Thanksgiving.